first of a series of workshops that Off the Grid is going to be doing about helping to support food businesses find a path, both in terms of temporary businesses to be able to operate more successfully, but also help them grow into permanent restaurants or second locations or catering or whichever way they want to go in the future. My name's Matt. I run Off the Grid. We are here in Off the Grid Union Square, and just a little bit about this space. We worked with Vacant Vibrant to be here, and technically we're here for about a month. We'll see how that goes, but this space was vacant for 5 years. It was Uniglow. It's 30,000 square feet, and a lot of people for years, Off the Grid's been around since 2010. A lot of people have always asked us what would we do if we had a permanent space, and this opportunity of working with Vacant Vibrant gave us the chance to say, well, what could a space be outside of food, and how can we explore that? And this is our kind of answer for that. So it's a ticketed event space and public event space like we're doing right now on the second floor. On the first floor, it's an art and immersive experience. Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, we have drinks and a DJ down there, and the art is open. It's interactive. It's pretty cool. And then we have a coffee person here in the morning. So there will be other events that happen that we're excited to announce, but this is the first of our public workshops, and thrilled to have you down there. This is a great panel, and I really appreciate everybody coming down. Jacob from Vacant Vibrant, Blake from La Cocina, Miguel from Pastor Papi. Very different kinds of experiences with pop-ups, but I dare say I couldn't have chosen a better panel for people to talk about going from a temporary pop-up experience if you're an existing business and thinking about growing into a permanent pop-up or something a little bit more permanent. So with that, would love to just give everyone a few minutes to maybe introduce themselves and a little bit about you and your organization. So maybe start with Jacob.
Sure, yeah, thank you for hosting, and thank you all for being here. I'm Jacob. I'm the co-founder of SF New Deal. We are a nonprofit here in San Francisco that supports small businesses and works to make the city a place that San Francisco small businesses can thrive. We work in partnership with the city and independently to run about a dozen programs that support small businesses, and Vacant Vibrant is one of those programs. The Vacant Vibrant program works to help small businesses, artists, and cultural organizations establish themselves in previously vacant storefronts downtown. The program launched in 2023 as a partnership between SF New Deal and the city of San Francisco, and over the course of the past couple of years has opened about 30 storefronts across downtown. In the program model, SF New Deal really works to help small business operators run a pop-up, many for the first time, to understand what it's like to be in a brick and mortar. For some, these are food businesses, for others, these are retailers or art concepts. And over the course of a brief pop-up period that varies from between about 3 months to a year, really work to give them the tools to really develop their concept without having to confront all of the operational challenges of running a brick and mortar. And so the type of support our team provides is in part funding based, is in part rooted in technical assistance, or helping people sign lease agreements, help people get permits, help people kind of navigate the realities of having a storefront. At the end of that pop-up term, if there's interest between both the landlord and tenant, people are able to sign a long-term lease downtown. Of the 30 storefronts that we've popped up through the program, about half of those end up electing to be long-term tenants and being a part of downtown. What we found through the program is it's really created a pathway for a bunch of different types of entrepreneurs that historically have not thought of downtown as a location that their business could grow or thrive as a new destination. And I think in a really positive way for the city as a whole, as we've recovered from the pandemic, downtown is needing a new identity. Kind of the downtown that existed up until 2020 no longer provides the kind of economic and cultural conditions to allow ground floor retail to thrive as we knew it historically. And small business owners bring a lot of enthusiasm and new ideas in the work that they do every day, and our pop-up program has really provided a pathway to bring those ideas to downtown and to allow us to start experimenting today about the type of future that we want to see in the neighborhood.
It's really great. Excited to hear more. Blake, how about you?
Hi, I'm Blake from La Cocina. I've been at La Cocina our late stage businesses, La Cocina is a food business incubator. We work with women food entrepreneurs, low income, who are, coming to our program to fulfill their dreams, and so support their families and hopefully build their communities through food businesses. So, yeah, what I do is work with the later stage businesses as they get ready to graduate out of our kitchen. We have 2 commercial kitchens, one in the Tenderloin and our original one in the Mission, where the businesses grow during their incubation stages. They spend about 8 months in pre-incubation learning, we call it like a food MBA, learning a little bit about all the aspects of the food business that most cooks haven't really learned. So a lot of the women come in having cooked at home or on the black market somewhere, selling their food out of their houses or on the streets, and now they're ready to formalize those businesses and grow those businesses. So first they learn a little bit about marketing, finance, operations, and how to work in a commercial kitchen, and then they start to develop the business that they have come in with a concept and work out of our kitchens anywhere from 1 to 5 more years. And then as that time runs out, whether they're outgrowing our kitchen or just ready to live their dream or the opportunity presents itself, we help them find a space, and that's where a program like Vacant and Vibrant, or hustling out in the streets trying to find a location that fits both your dreams and your budget. That's where I come in, and we have about 80 graduates, 40 plus in brick and mortars around the Bay Area, and about 40 in the program at any given time. And then back of the napkin, we're working with some of those graduates to continue to develop and expand their businesses. So, they get out of La Cocina and life isn't any easier just because you have a space, whether it's a pop-up or a permanent space. It's still tough out on the streets and out in the market, and increasing expenses everywhere. So we try to continue to support people through all the challenges of business owners.
Awesome, Miguel.
My name is Miguel Escobedo, and I'm the owner of Pastor Papi here around the corner. I have a lot of history in the Bay Area in restaurants. My family started Celia's restaurants, the first one being in the avenues, and there's like 14 of them in the Bay Area. And I grew up learning the kitchen at the Celia's in San Rafael. From there, I opened a restaurant with my brother called Papalote Mexican Grill in 1999 when I was 2 years old. In that restaurant, we did a lot of cool stuff. It was crazy to open a burrito spot in the Mission. But I realized we were opening up a new concept against many restaurants, but they were kind of all doing the same thing. So we approached it more of a contemporary, health-based, just more conscious of the ingredients. And that was super cool. I did that for a while, 19 years. After that, I wanted to do something on my own, so my brother still does Papalote Mexican Grill. We launched a salsa, we worked with Matt. So then I had to reinvent myself, and one of my frustrations was that the real al pastor that you see in Mexico was not present in San Francisco. You would have to go to San Jose or far to get the real al pastor, which is made in a trompo and sliced up. Nobody did it like that here. So I created a Pastor Papi, and we started as a food truck, like a trailer, if you will. And my goal was to just brand, kind of carry the popularity I had for Papalote. I'm also a DJ, so I had some following from that from a long time. So I wanted to bring all that together and kind of start a new concept at Pastor Papi. And the trailer was just meant to be a quick thing to create the brand and then move into a brick and mortar right away. I didn't want to have a trailer, that wasn't like the goal. But then came the pandemic and fires and smokes, and so my goal kept getting delayed. But we still kept fighting hard. I worked very close with Off the Grid then at many other markets, as well as other markets. But then I was like, oh man, it's getting too hard to catch up to that dream. The branding was awesome, but running a trailer was super hard. We did that for 6 years. The cool thing about the trailer was we were able to do a lot of benefit work and outreach to communities, so it was fulfilling, but it was hard to run that business. So about 7, 8 months ago, I stopped the trailer just to take a break and regroup and stuff. And I was actually kind of like out of the game for a while, wanted to take a break. And then Vacant to Vibrant came knocking on the door, and it was an amazing, amazing opportunity. So, in fact, all that branding that I had done really paid off with this new project. And so now, 6 months later, the pop-up is 1.5 years. So now we're into the final year, and then I'll have to wrestle with the landlord to see if we can want to stay or not. But it's been an amazing ride and incredible help from Vacant to Vibrant. So that's my story.
Amazing. So, I mean, I'd like to start actually just where you left off. One of the things that Blake and I were talking about when you arrived was how you were able to translate the brand and the identity of your previous business into that space in a way that didn't feel temporary at all. So I'm really curious about how you think about that space. Is that space a destination in the long run? Is it the amount of time you've been in there now? Like, do you feel like you have a vision of that as being part of your future, or is it a stop on the way to somewhere else? How are you thinking about that right now?
You have to go, or I had to go into it thinking it was going to be a long-term thing for you.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to half-ass it or do it a little bit, see if it works out. Like, we went all out, and luckily, Vacant to Vibrant was 100% super supportive the whole way. I mean, it just wouldn't happen. I couldn't have said, oh, I'm going to take the old Chipotle and open up a restaurant, just in Union Square. You know, it's not going to happen. But to see a local brand and a local dream nestled between Nintendo and, you know, these major brands, it's cool for me and it's cool for all my people and it's cool for tourists and everyone to see something local, whereas it would have been a Chipotle. You know? So for me, 100% yes, I'm trying to stay there as long as I can. You know, and we talked to the landlord beforehand, see what his vision was, and obviously he's like, I don't want to have something here and then have to start over again. You know, so he's willing to work with us, and we're pushing as hard as we can to, you know, a liquor license isn't something you get for a little bit. You know, we're in it to win it. So far so good.
That's awesome. So Jacob, 30 pop-ups so far. How have you seen the conversation with landlords evolve? Are they, as San Francisco changes, is it becoming more challenging, or is it becoming more open? Kind of, are they being more open to different ideas, just in terms of the journey of where you started?
Yeah, so the way Vacant to Vibrant works is that we run public-facing applications both for landlords that have spaces, or property managers that have spaces, and for tenants who want to operate those storefronts. And through the program, we do some matchmaking to bring people to the table and to make these deals come to fruition. Since the beginning, hearing from landlords about what their challenges are has been really central to the program model. And I think, you know, in a shifting landscape for downtown, it is certainly true that for ground floor operators, like restaurants, like retailers, like today looks very different than it looked 5 years ago. That is also true for landlords and for the economics of their buildings. One of the things our team has kind of learned to understand is that vacancy downtown, like, certainly shows up as a resident pretty similarly. Like, every block you walk on, you might say, hey, it'd be great if there was services that I could access on this block. The economics of those ground floor vacancies look really different. So in the financial district, for example, a lot of the vacancy is associated with office buildings. And those office buildings, the primary driver of revenue for the buildings is the office space. And so working with those landlords, the revenue that we're generating on the ground floor means less to them than a landlord on Powell Street, for example, where the vacancy on the ground floor might represent the primary driver of revenue for that building. And so as we've worked with the landlords, there's really a consistent desire, which is they want to activate their space, they want tenants in the space that are going to be there long term. There's a lot of enthusiasm about what that looks like. But in all the ways that pop-ups are fun and exciting and different, like, pop-ups for a lot of reasons represent liability for a landlord. Right? Like a dream kind of tenant for a landlord is someone who's a multinational tenant, who's ready to sign a 50-year lease, who has like a bunch of fancy lawyers that are going to talk to their lawyers and will take care of it. And I think when we go to landlords with concepts for pop-ups and for tenants, a lot of what we need to do is to address their core anxieties, to say, hey, I know I'm going to bring you a food operator or retailer that you haven't heard of before. Like, they're great, and we're going to be here to make sure you know they were going to be great. And the way that looks programmatically is we sign leases directly with landlords. We make sure the insurance is provided to those landlords. We do all the permitting on behalf of these businesses, which really is a way to bring those landlords to the table. Certainly, we pitch a lot of landlords that aren't interested in the program. We pitch a lot of landlords that are interested in the program. I think what we have found is that landlords do a really good job of talking to one another. And so when we have success and we have storefronts that are delivering on what the program seeks to do, we certainly hear more momentum and enthusiasm about what it's going to look like. A lot of the reason this program is designed as pop-ups as well is that there's kind of a perpetual optimism that landlords have about what things are going to be looking like in 6 months. And so for landlords, when we launched this program in 2023, even at that point in time, when it was pretty clear, like, we were still kind of increasing our vacancy rate as a city and having challenges, kind of the perpetual refrain from landlords was like, let's check in 3 months, maybe in 3 months, like, market rate activity is going to be happening again. And we heard from other cities that we talked about pop-up programming that for most retailers in general, like, 3 months is the lease negotiation, right? You're not doing anything in 3 months that's programmatic. Kind of the one group of operators that is even willing to talk about 3 months as a timeline to do anything, like, is small business owners, are operators who are willing to say, hey, I can be here tomorrow and figure out what to do. And so a lot of how we designed this program was to kind of honor that ability that small business owners have to show up in that way and to reduce that risk. So to say, hey, for your pop-up term, we don't want you to be stressing about the rent, we don't want you to be stressing about the permits, we want to make sure that you can actually deliver on your concept. And so by addressing kind of these core considerations for landlords around the timeline, around the insurance, around the lease signing, and around the compliance, we kind of were able to design a pop-up program that for tenants in the program really gives them a platform to try something new, but for landlords kind of preserves their desire to stay long-term relative to kind of their needs of the building. And what we found is that many landlords who at the onset say, hey, I really want to think about this as a pop-up because I'm excited for Starbucks to return, kind of at the end of that pop-up term actually say, hey, I actually derived a lot of value from having this activation in my building, and I'm ready to sign a long-term deal. And the deals that we're seeing people sign coming out of the program are certainly far more reasonable than if we were to negotiate on day one around the longer term.
Blake, La Cocina doesn't sign leases the same way that SF New Deal signs leases. But can you share a little bit about the flavor of the conversation you're hearing from landlords when your entrepreneurs are thinking about space?
I mean, I'm always trying to convince landlords that we're an amenity to them and their tenants. So that's like, you know, one of the first things I say is like, we are bringing value to this building, to the people upstairs. And I recognize that it is a fact that they are taking on some liability, but I'm less concerned about that liability. I'm more like, you know, the people upstairs are gonna think it's amazingly cool to have Pastor Papi downstairs, and they're gonna tell their friends and bring their friends and like their job more. If you can do that, and if they like their job, they're gonna pay their, you know, blah, blah, blah rent, and it trickles all the way down. So, I mean, I'm definitely of the mindset that, like, we are the talent, and the landlord is providing a space for us, but that ultimately they should want us there, and that's the angle I'm starting from.
And are they receptive to that?
I mean, I think it's sort of a test point. If they feel like, no, I don't see it that way, you know, it's just dollars and cents to me, and you don't pay as much as the next guy, I just don't feel like it's gonna be a good relationship for 10 years. I think ultimately landlords, for me, have to see the long-term vision and a tenant's stability and, you know, the culture and the feel they're bringing to that neighborhood and that space is a benefit to the community and a benefit therefore to the building. So like, you know, the Tenderloin is an example of where like I'm negotiating really hard for low rents because our entrepreneurs are gonna struggle because it's hard to sell food with what's going on the streets often. And so, you know, I'm telling these landlords like, I'm sorry that 5 years ago you could get triple this in this building. It's just not happening right now.
Yep. So Miguel, is there anything looking back, so you're 6 months into
6
this?
months.
Anything that, looking back, you would say is a big surprise or a big learning or a takeaway that you didn't really think about this experience from the time that you started?
Nothing huge surprise. I just knew, you know, we're not a multi-million-dollar funded corporation where when we open, it's gonna be the way it should be already. We're still growing, you know, so we're very much a small business in that way. But part of that organic growth is allowing your concept to mold a little bit to the organic growth of the spot that you have and the habits of the people that are coming that you didn't know. So some adjustment and some of what you want to purvey, but not very, you know, the surprise a little bit was how much we've gotten past our goals in the short amount of time. But I understand too that in a space, you know, Union Square is almost like being set up at Pier 39 or Fisherman's Wharf, where the tourism is gonna dictate a lot of your business. And so sometimes, you know, when school started, we just went like, woo, you know, but then the conventions, you know, so we're learning, so small surprises, but being able to adjust to a new space, that was the biggest challenge, I guess.
Yeah. By the way, for those that don't follow Miguel on Instagram, Miguel's Instagram is great. One of the things that's always like super interesting is just watching you spread your wings a little bit in terms of the collaborations and the menu expansion and the one-off things that you do. It's been really cool to watch from a distance about how the space has allowed you to do that, or it seems like the space has allowed you to do that. So congratulations on that. So Jacob, who are you looking for? And like pop-up applicants, like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's actually a really strong transition because I think as we think about who's going to excel in this program, like it's our belief that we can help people sign leases, we can help people get insurance. Like no one's going to a vacant or vibrant storefront because they're like, oh, SF New Deal has a new strategic direction. It's like they're going because they follow Pastor Papi and they're like, I'm going to go where Miguel's going because this is cool, and we can't provide that. And so we really are looking for small businesses, artist cultural organizations that have a community that's ready to fill a space. And that community might be from an existing brick and mortar location and they're bringing to a new downtown storefront. It might be an online community. Next door is Tia, a pop-up through Vacant environment that hasn't had a brick and mortar before, but has really fostered a strong online following and is using that following to have their community show up in Union Square. And so we're pretty expansive about what that community might be, but we're really looking for people that have kind of a community that's ready to show up. Because of the pop-up nature of this program, we find that the people that have kind of the most positive experiences in the program are really launching their pop-ups with like a hypothesis that they want to try. And they want to say, okay, I have a new concept, I have a new idea of a menu item, I have a new reason why this location would make sense for me, and that's what I want to learn over the course of my people that I think struggle the most in the program, like, are just doing it all over the course of 6 months and say, I'll just assess when I get there. Because being a small business owner, whether you're in a program or not, is incredibly challenging. And it takes you 6 months to like figure out your staffing, to do any of the stuff that you need to actually operate day to day. And we want to make sure that by the time people finish the pop-up, they're not signing a long-term deal just because it's the option that's before them. Like if you run a pop-up through our program and at the end of the pop-up the answer is like, this doesn't make sense for me, like we are so happy to support you in not signing a long-term lease and saying, hey, actually you have a wholesale model, like get rid of the retail space, it's a liability for you to figure out how to pay. And I think a huge benefit of the program is someone, like giving entrepreneurs the opportunity to walk away. Prior to the pandemic, you know, a lot of what landlords wanted to sign downtown were 5, 10, or 15-year leases. And as an entrepreneur, you might know, like, a week into running your storefront that the concept doesn't work. And if you signed a 10-year lease, like, you're really stuck. And so when we're having people apply to this program, a lot of what we're looking for is that community. A lot of what we're looking for is that hypothesis. But as Miguel mentioned, we're also really trying to bring kind of the best of San Francisco downtown. You know, as you would walk down Powell Street prior to the pandemic, it didn't feel a lot like San Francisco, right? It felt a lot like the big major tourist street in any city in any country in the world. Like a bunch of big multinational brands that certainly could get people in the door, and you could walk between here and Union Square and feel like you don't know anything more about San Francisco, what we're trying to do. And really our hope, not only in our work in Union Square, but more broadly downtown, is to have downtown reflect the best of San Francisco, of the neighborhood citywide, so that as you walk down Powell Street, you say, hey, I'm getting a feel for what is happening in Chinatown, and the Mission, and the Sunset, and the Bayview, because I have businesses that reflect all of that, right? If you walk down to the corner where we've opened Dandelion Chocolate, and you learn about a new business, you might say, hey, maybe I should go to Valencia and learn about their other locations, what's happening in that neighborhood. And so we don't have requirements about having already operated a storefront. We don't have requirements around, like, you have to be hitting this type of revenue target. It really is kind of a wide funnel of folks that find their way into the program. I will say that we don't treat this as like an incubator program. Meaning we're not taking a group of friends that have always wanted to run a coffee shop and saying, go figure out how to do that downtown for the first time in 3 months. Like, it's hard enough to do anything downtown. It's really hard to learn how to do business, and combining those things is like not a recipe for success. But for folks that have run businesses or pop-ups in the past that have something that they want to try, that's really where we've seen kind of success in the program, what we look for as we bring folks in.
It really resonates for me. Like for us, you know, we do food marketplaces outside, and so the idea here for us was how could we be a platform in a space inside as well. I'm curious for La Cocina applicants, how do you talk to them about how long they should think about being in a space? What's that conversation look like?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously have the opportunity to do all different kinds of pop-ups, and usually, you know, my goal would be to press for a longer period. I think Miguel was saying earlier about how the seasonality really affects the business, and I think you don't really understand the business in most places until you've gone through all those seasons, because, you know, the summer here is very different than the winter here, and to make a judgment if you had 6 months from, you know, October to whatever that adds up to, March, is gonna be different than March to October. And so, like, and we are really encouraging our entrepreneurs to be paying attention to those historicals and figuring out what their future is gonna look like based on what the past has looked like. So if you don't have a long enough past, obviously it's really hard to predict your future. That being said, you know, as Miguel said, it's a big investment. Once you go for a year, you're pretty much almost in it for life. I mean, you've really put a lot into that space. I love what you've done with that space, but when I walked that space earlier and I thought about 3 to 6 months, I was like, we'll barely finish decorating this in 3 months, and it's time to figure out our exit strategy. So for me, it's a bit of a balancing act, but the goal of the pop-up is to really understand, is this the long-term investment? Is this my future home? So as much as you can make that experience realistic, the better. So, you know, depending on the type of pop-up you do, and I think it's amazing that Vacant Vibrant is offering so many people the chance to pop up, because it's really hard to find opportunities for short-term experiences without signing your life away.
we talk a little bit about marketing and just the difference between opening a thing and running a thing in the long run, and like how do you approach marketing day to day in this space to that customer that you're kind of discovering is kind of different for you in Square. What does that look like for you?
The marketing part of it, again, it's learning who is supporting you. I understood, I think, when I took this project on at this area, that I knew that I had to obtain and win the people that work around for lunch. That was my focus. Whoever works around here and has lunch, that's gonna be my bread and butter. Tourists are gonna come and go, the homies are gonna come and go. You know, I got 43,000 followers on Instagram, and I posted stuff that's gotten 100,000 likes, but no one came in, right? So sometimes Instagram likes and stuff doesn't turn into sales. But what does turn into sales is the actual people that work around here, and you have to focus on that. And you know, I don't have like a frequent punch card, but if I saw you 10 times in a row, you're gonna get a free burrito, you know, because thank you for supporting us, and we want to work with our community. Right? So there's the Instagram marketing that keeps our name out there and fun, but out of all that, not that many people are gonna come every other day. Right? But there's the getting to know my customers and hearing them out. Like, man, I wish you had a little more vegetarian stuff. I'm like, okay, let's, without turning it into a cafeteria too. I have a goal, I have a concept, Mexico City. So if it fits that, let's fit it in there, you know? I've seen many people that have trucks and they overheard their people, and all of a sudden they're selling quinoa salad and salmon. You know, it's like, okay, now what are you? You lost your focus. So keep your focus, but listen to your people, and you know, take care of your customers mainly. It's, I think, you know, again, it's nice to have a special or whatever, and it'll bring some, you know, such many different things going on, but our bread and butter, our core customers, learn who they are and take care of them.
So I think you talked a little bit about this that I just want to kind of pull through is it's all the things that you're talking about are running a hospitality business, right? Being in tune with your customers. And you mentioned like one of the things that you are not an incubator, that it's hard enough to run a food business or run a retail business. And so learning it in 3 months isn't really practical. Are there any other kind of learnings that you've had over the course of like the 30 pop-ups that you've helped facilitate that would be helpful for people to kind of understand if they were considering something?
Yeah, I think certainly for us, both running the program and seeing the individual experiences of the people in the program has been an incredible learning experience. I think both because we launched this program with no background in running temporary storefronts or signing commercial leases or operating downtown. This is the first program that we've worked on that has really taken this type of approach. And because we've created such a wide funnel that I think even within the universe of, hey, we're bringing food businesses into the program, we have people who have gone from their garage to a storefront, we have people that have opened a third location downtown through their business, and those entrepreneurs need really different types of support, and they both have, like at any given point in time, a number of really pressing challenges that our team needs to respond to and address. And so I think what we have seen kind of sets people up for the success the most is to make sure they go in kind of eyes wide open about what this opportunity is, and to make sure they understand, like, are the resources that are available through Vacant to Vibrant actually the thing that's going to help you kind of address your core challenge, which is to say, we offer folks some grant funding, we offer folks some support in the lease. Like, this program is not a get rich quick. We're not putting people into pop-ups and saying, have so much fun now because you're all set and set up for success. We say, hey, we're going to make sure that you have a partner in operating the storefront, but like, there's going to be limits about how much we can show up and what we can do for you, and is that going to make sure that you are going to be successful? And so we work with people both in kind of their interview process entering this program, but also as they establish their storefront, which is like, what does success mean to you? We don't have any expectation in this program about the number of people signing long-term leases. We don't have expectations about the number of employees that people are hiring. We don't have expectations about the revenue goals. We really try to determine with each entrepreneur, like, how will unit business working? And oftentimes there's just a lot of work that's needed to actually assess that. And so trying to help entrepreneurs understand, like, what does success mean to you? What does that look like operationally? What does that look like from a revenue standpoint? You can answer a lot of those questions, or you can build a framework to answer those questions before you start operating the storefront. Because I think a lot of what we see and what a lot of small business owners experience is that, like, by the time you're operating the storefront, like, you're dealing with a lot of floods all the time. Like, there's just, shit is breaking constantly. And so it's really challenging to both say, can I keep the storefront open? And also, like, what is my aspiration in life, right? Like, those things are just hard to wrestle with simultaneously. And so the more that people can feel like they're starting the process, at least with, I'll know it's working when, really helps our team show up as a partner to them. To say, hey, if we could get you more grant funding, like, what would that enable you to do? How could that help you grow a new audience? If we could help you sign a 5-year lease coming out of this program, like, is that a win for you? I think one of the things that we found is that when people sometimes get to that long-term lease signing, process, and they're talking to the landlord, and the landlord gives them some price, their, like, first inclination is like, could I get the price lower? And it can sometimes come from a spot of, like, could I just get a better deal? But sometimes we try to say, like, hey, if you make that offer and they say yes, like, is that actually a win for you? Like, would you be excited to sign at 50% of what the landlord offered, which already is a made up number? Like, you made up a different number. Like, do you want to be here? And I think trying to help people kind of, like, pause the cycle of running their business and just say, if I could sign a 5-year lease at this rate, that makes sense for me. Great, let's go negotiate for that. If you can't get it, let's put you somewhere else where you could. But kind of try to get off a little bit the train sometimes of just going through the next step constantly, because I think very often, in San Francisco as a whole, not just downtown, we have entrepreneurs that start running their business, and it's not until like 10 or 20 years in that they stick their head up for the first time and they say, hey, how's it going? And oftentimes they're like, are at that moment because a bookkeeper, an accountant, or some tax issue has arisen, and they're like, oh, I'm actually losing an insane amount of money running the business, and I'm working 20 hours a day. Like, that's not a great experience for me. And they've done that kind of after a bunch of challenges already been incurred. And so I think we try to be in front of that as much as we can. It doesn't mean that people don't struggle in this program or have those realizations, but I think we feel good that as people sign long-term leases coming out of this program, they're doing so kind of with a vision of what they want to see in their space.
One of the things that I think is super impressive, maybe even a superpower of the SFU deal, is your creative engagement with the city of San Francisco, and the art of permitting. And so I'm curious about your impression right now about the city's kind of view of these things. Any feelings on that right now?
Yeah, so for context, this program launches a partnership between SFU Deal, a nonprofit, and the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, which is a city department that really focuses on small business support citywide. I'd say part of the reason that this program was launched in partnership with an organization like ours is that there's a lot of mediation work needed to actually bring pop-ups or storefronts to fruition in general. So certainly there's a role that landlords and tenants play, but the city carries a lot of the compliance pieces. There's a lot of insurance implications, there's a lot of marketing implications, kind of all these groups that have to come together. And the city is able to do some of that mediation, but isn't able to actually engage with landlords, for example, in the way that we are with the program. And so I think we've seen a lot of enthusiasm from the city as a partner in enabling this program to exist. And I think we've also seen kind of the limitations of what is possible in the pop-up framework. So I'd say, for example, pop-ups are fun and temporary and exciting. There's not a fun, temporary, and exciting fire permit. Like, you got a fire permit, or you don't have a fire permit. You can't really navigate that in like a, don't worry about if the building burns down in the next 3 months. It's like, they gotta be stressed about it day one. And so I think we've been successful at really trying to bring the city in as a partner and just say, there's a shared goal here about what pop-ups represent. Like, all city departments, whether you are economic development or not, have a vested interest in the success of downtown and the success of kind of our economic recovery as a city. And also, those departments are often kind of bound by a bunch of code that they need to enforce to make sure that, kind of as a whole, the city is safe and small businesses are safe to be in. And I think what we have found is that our success is in being that translator between some of these city departments and small business owners. So many of the businesses that we work with have engaged before in the city where they've gone to get a health permit, or they've gone to get some form signed, and they had a negative interaction with someone, and they say, like, the city doesn't want my business to succeed, like, they're out to get me. And we interact with a lot of city employees, like, they obviously want small businesses to do well, and unfortunately, like, there's often these challenges in how they can communicate. Like, they know that the way they know how to communicate is to say, you can approve your permit or deny your permit, but that's based on a bunch of code compliance stuff that, like, isn't the success of your business. It's about the safety of your business, about what's happening here. And so I think we have felt very fortunate to have the city as a partner and to help kind of bring small businesses in the city together to do this. I think there's also been a lot of reception from the city, which is like, stuff in this program is working, and how can we make successes from this program more widely applicable to the small business landscape here in San Francisco. So we work closely with the Office of Small Business, with the mayor's office, to say, how can we say it actually would help us as a city more broadly to make it easier for small businesses to open quickly, and what are the ways that the city can aid in that?
I mean, it's really great to be a partner in it as well. Does anybody have any questions? We have a few minutes left before we open up the bar. Anybody have any questions for anybody on the panel?
Hi, my name is Yuka. My husband and I, we own a restaurant called Casaba. Hi, everyone. I had a question for you for Vacant to Vibrant program. What kind of like a percentage are you looking at for spaces that come with hood, like Pastor Papi's? And then I know that codes get updated a lot. For example, there's a place that was vacant for 5 years already. There's going to be significant like update that it's that's required by the city, and then that can be like $250,000, right? So what kind of a support do you have for like kind of like more like heavier food restaurants per se, or are you looking for more? Like I know a lot of like the bakeries, like they have their commissary and then they're just essentially doing retail and then maybe coffee service or some no food. Are you looking, is bulk of the inventory more of those spaces, or are you looking to have more like full service restaurant spaces?
Yeah, so the short answer is like, this is a really case by case kind of program. Meaning when people are applying to this program, they're applying both as landlords and as tenants, and so we don't have like a secret list of spaces that aren't just the spaces that are out there on the market that we're actively trying to pursue and bring into this program. In general, like we're not doing an incredible amount of tenant improvement in spaces. So we're not going into a space that has no hood and putting in a hood for the purposes of a pop-up. We were going into spaces that, for at least in the food context, typically have had food operations in the last 5 years, and the concept that we were pitching for that space is consistent with the bounds of that food operation. So whether they have no hood or type 1 or type 2 hood, like that is the proposed scope of what we're doing. Relative to the food businesses that we've opened, so food businesses represent about half of the pop-ups that have opened in general, and I'd say hood businesses are probably like a third of those. So I'd say we probably opened 5 or 6 storefronts that have hoods as a part of their operation. There's certainly a lesser volume of those than we have as like food retail spaces. I think what we also find is that by the time people are entertaining a concept with a hood, they already are having a conversation about a longer term residency, because when you have a hood very quickly, you have a bunch of expensive equipment, you have a bunch of other stuff that you need to do to actually enable operations to be successful. So Miguel's space is an example of that. We certainly pitch landlords often that have that kind of need. A lot of what our team does is we work to bring in DPH and DPI and fire early, so that we're not, for example, having someone sign a lease, find out that there's $500K and work to be done, and then saying, you have to solve it now. So all of our lease structures with landlords give us the flexibility to walk away in those moments, but we're actually not going to get into that stage. Like we're really doing a lot of pre-work before tenants enter the space for the first time, so that they know, hey, if there's a hood in the space, like the hood is generally compliant, maybe it needs like an AMSL system update, but on the whole, it's going to be believable in the context and resources of this program.
Thank you.
Hi, just want to say thank you so much for the panel. I really learned a lot. My name is Olivia. I'm the owner of Olivia's Tahulu, where I'm handling fruit tree, farm tree business. I'm curious because you have so much experience and you've seen so many like food business. How would you, I guess, at what stage of a food business would you think it's better to go for brick and mortar storefront versus just do more mobile, like whether it's a food truck or it's just like a catering? How do you, like, what are the considerations and what type of business would fit certain one is better?
I think maybe it's really depends on you and what you can do. You know, maybe financially might be the deciding factor, because if you can get into a space, I think that would be the best. You know, if you have a concept, a clear concept already, and an idea of how to manage your restaurant, I think going right into a restaurant is the best case scenario. But obviously, you're just growing. Places like La Cocina and places like Vacant can help you develop your idea and your concept a little bit. For my brand, I started the branding with a food truck, and so, you know, you can't start small financially and build, of course, you know, but it's a long grind. So it just depends on your situation, I think. If you have a good team already and a lot of support, you should start at a restaurant. But if you're just you and somebody else, or just you, then pop-ups to learn, you know, as much as you can learn, and then grow a little bit more into bigger pop-ups, caters, learn, and then invest into a truck or trailer. Everything has its challenges. But, you know, if you can go right into a business and grow from there, I think that would be the best option.
Do you mind if I ask a follow-up? Why do you think restaurant or like having brick and mortar is the best?
I feel like you're gonna be working a lot, right? So I feel like at a restaurant, you can get more support for yourself without you having to always be there or always be doing everything. With a cater concept or a truck concept, you have to be more hands-on. So not only do you have to worry about the runnings of the business, but you also still have to focus on the actual product itself. But with a restaurant, you can focus more on your product and get more help with running the business instead of, you know, adding so much more. Like, if you're doing a cater, like for the food truck, I had to, if my scheduled lunch at Levi's Plaza with my trailer, you know, off the grid, it's from 11 to 3. I would have to wake up at 6 in the morning, go to Restaurant Depot, get all my stuff, go to my prep kitchen, prep with my crew, cook everything, to code, load in the truck, make sure everything's set, make sure everything's safe, hitch up the truck, drive to the location, park, then park my car, and then set up to open, then get our ass kicked for 3 hours, and then clean up, and then put everything away, and then go get my truck, hitch my truck, then drive back to the kitchen, then empty everything, make sure everything's safe as far as temperatures, fridge, cupboard, wash everything, clean the whole truck, then take the truck, go park it somewhere where it's permitted, and then go home. So my 11 to 3 turned to 6 to 6, right? It's doable, that's the way to grind it out. But at the restaurant, now if I'm 11 to 3, I can get there at 10 or whatever, order my stuff to my place, and then my staff comes in. So it's not, and I can worry about my Dungeness crab special that I thought about, or, you know, stay focused on my product and not so much on that grind. So I feel that's why it's easier to develop and grow already in a restaurant, because then the growth potential and the help is easier, I would say. And that grind that I described applies to caterers and tent pop-ups and stuff. I love it. I love the grind, so I never minded it, but it's a lot of work, right?
We're gonna get Miguel back into a truck. Blake, it looked like you also had maybe something like that.
Yeah, I mean, at La Cocina, we have a lot of people come in with questions like this, and you know, the way I like to do it is sort of envision yourself a few years out in the future. Where do you wanna be? What is the dream for you? Is the dream a cart so you can move from street to street, or, you know, so you can pack the thing up and put it in storage and have a month off every year to travel the world, or whatever, where you wanna be? And then we can work backwards, and you can say, okay, I really wanna be in a restaurant, but I don't have anywhere near the $250,000 or $500,000 to get there. Let's look at the steps. Maybe a cart is one of those steps to get to that restaurant. And then make sure, you know, your projections so that the money's gonna work out in the end of this session where you're leading yourself up to the ultimate vision. But like you said, it is really up to you. I mean, some people love that grind, or some people, you know, like to have their family all within one arm's length of each other in this truck. So they can, you know, be right in there with their kids and, you know, not have to hire outside employees and be able to move to San Rafael when the going gets tough in the city or whatever.
The one thing I will add, just from my experience, operating a single food truck, usually that's owner operated. Like the economics of that truck typically would require a second truck to be a manager to get you off of that truck. And so I think that's something to be kind of aware of where you wanna be. Like, are you the one that's cooking, or are you the one that's managing from afar? Maybe a restaurant is a place that is more set up economically for something like that.
I do want to add though, the concept of senior CSIG. I don't know if you know that brand. Senior CSIG are the homies. They started out with one truck with no stickers, just a couple of guys with a dream, you know, and a very clear concept. And they grinded it out, one truck. Then they bought a second truck. Then they bought a third truck. But they're very smart on where to park. They saw the patterns of where people gathered for lunch. Let's put a truck there, let's put a truck there. That was in 2010, and now they have 4 restaurants and less trucks. Because the restaurants are gonna be more profitable, better manageable. And they're out in Hawaii chilling. Well, and it's about that, you know, because now they can have people manage their restaurants, and it's less worry with trucks. So now they have less trucks, but more restaurants. So that was a very unique and beautiful way to grow, was from one truck to 2 or 3 trucks now, but 4 restaurants. One in Chase, one in Embarcadero, Oakland, Valencia. Great locations. So that's a great example, I feel like, of going from a truck to restaurants.
Want to be conscious of time, maybe one last question? Yeah.
And I'm Judy. I actually submitted my Vacant application a couple of weeks ago. Not in any way, shape, or form to rush. I'm just wondering at what point.
Did you get it?
I'm just wondering at what point should I realize, okay, I didn't get it? Like, you know, how long is the waiting period?
Yeah, so the program accepts people on a rolling basis. The program is going to continue to open storefronts at least for the next year. We try to get folks a response regardless of whether they're proceeding within 30 days. So if you haven't gotten a response, totally feel free to come chat with me after. We do our applications on a rolling review process. And so our team, in partnership with the outside review advisors, are reading those applications. And then just for folks kind of broader visibility in the program, we do kind of a first review. Finalists that make the process go to the landlords, and landlords make kind of the ultimate determination of who they offer their space to. And so we try to let people know kind of where they're at in that process. But for many folks in that process, if they are kind of proceeding to a finalist round, where they end up is basically in this process where we let them know that they're being pitched to landlords, then if there's interest from a landlord, we'll kind of circle back with them.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Well, thank you all for being just to call out, our plan right now is that we will be doing, next week, we are going to be doing a workshop with off the grids awardees of various different businesses of the year. And so pop-up restaurants, food truck operators, people who are new to the space over the course of the last year. So we're doing that same time, same place. And then 2 weeks after that, we are going to do excellence in public event pop-ups. So people who are doing the nighttime food events and working out of tents. And then, so that's January 6th, and then on the 13th, we're gonna be doing a workshop on, or a panel on, throwing events in the public in San Francisco for event organizers. So please share with your friends. We really appreciate everybody coming down tonight. We're having a little bit of a hosted bar here, and I look forward to meeting you all, but really appreciate you coming down to our new space. Thank you very much.
That's a nice chair.